right, we're going to go ahead and get started with our webinar for today. I am going to send out a really quick chat just to make sure everybody can see my screen and also hear my voice. So let me go ahead and do that really quick. Google Sites recently had a major facelift back in November of last year, and so it's totally different. It's very user-friendly, lots of dragging and dropping, and really easy for teachers to do and create. So we're going to go ahead and look at that today. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my next screen. And like I said, you guys have all sent a chat already. If anything else happens to pop up, if you have any audio problems or you can't see or anything, feel free to just go ahead and send it through the chat. And I am, it's right now on my second screen, so I am looking at that. So a little bit about myself. My name is Christy Hughes. I'm going to be your host for today. I work at NOACA. I am a Google for Education certified trainer. I've actually been at NOACA now for 13 years, so it's crazy. It's been that long. But prior to that, I was an elementary teacher, and I have 3 kids Bridget, Clayton, and Ashlyn, and my youngest is 3, Clay is 5, and Bridget is 8. So I'm glad to be here with you today, and I hope that you learned some things about Google Sites. So some webinar housekeeping. All of you guys are muted for your microphones. The chat box is on the side, so feel free to go ahead and use that. If you'd like to follow along in your own account, I encourage you to do that. Go ahead and log into your own Google account, open up a new window so that you can still see my screen and hear my voice, and then try these things out in your own Google Sites account. But in any case, if you're having any problems, once again, go ahead and use that chat box, or just go ahead and unmute yourself and just go ahead and ask a question. All right, so our objective for today is to learn how to create a teacher website using the new Google Sites. These are some resources that I am going to provide for you. These resources are also out on our training.noaka.org website. However, if you want to jot them down fine now, that's fine. If you don't, no big deal. All of these webinars are recorded, and these presentations are also put out on our website, so you can feel free to get it later if that's easier. But the manual, I think, is about 15 pages. It has a lot of screenshots on how to do different things. And then the checklist is a whole bunch of little instructional videos of how to do different things. So if you want to change your header, you can click on a 2-minute video on how to do that. Or if you want to change, your theme or something like that. So in any case, those are the resources, but like I said, they are also out on our training.noaka.org website. This is just a screenshot of our website. I'm sure this is where you went to sign up for this class, but in any case, I just want to point out a couple things. Here, once again, our class materials are up here. This is where we have all of those checklists. If you just click on any icon, it will get you to that checklist. And then over here where it says recorded webinars, that is where you can click on and view any prior webinar that we have put out there. We usually take a couple days just to kind of edit it, and we put a beginning on it and then an end on it, and then we go ahead and put it out there. So feel free to visit those, or share them with other people in your building that may benefit from that. Our weekly tech tips, I just want to mention this as well if you're not part of this. We do encourage people to be a part of our weekly tech tips. Every Tuesday we send out real short and sweet, it's not very long, just an email that talks about different things that you can do in your classroom. So sometimes they're Google related, sometimes they're not. But in any case, we're not going to spam you, but it is every Tuesday that we go ahead and send that out. So if you're interested, go ahead and visit that link, and you can go ahead and sign up. It's completely free. All right, couple last things. GEG of Northwest Ohio, if you're not aware, you probably see this logo in the corner of our screen. Our GEG of Northwest Ohio is kind of what we call ourselves. It's a Google Educators Group, where we provide different trainings throughout the school year, and we have a few of them that are coming up this summer. They're all free, and they're in various locations. We just recently had one in Perrysburg. We're going to be having one in Bryan. We're going to be having one in River Valley. So we're kind of in all parts of Ohio, really, and anybody can go, and it's totally free, and we're always looking for things like that. So if you're interested in that, there's the website to visit the GEG, and you can get more information about that. All right, so let's go ahead and hop into the new Google site. So first off, these are the topics that we're going to cover today. So we're going to talk about how you can go ahead and create a new site, change the banner, add lots of different things. And then down towards the bottom over here, we're going to talk about publishing your site. So what you're going to notice, and those of you that had used the old Google sites, we call it the classic Google sites, the publishing is a little bit different. So I will point that out. And then also I'm going to recommend a Chrome extension, and I'll show you how to install that if you choose to. But the G Suite training is a Chrome extension, so if you're familiar with Google Chrome apps and extensions, you can go out there and install it for free. But this G Suite training appears in the corner of your screen, and it's basically little videos on how to do various things. And I'll be honest and tell you that I use that to help train myself on the new Google sites if I had some questions. So it is really informative, and it's really, really good. So I'll show you how to go ahead and install that if you choose to. So we're going to go ahead and check out the new Google Sites, and I have tuned in for the Christy Show on the Google Sites. I am going to hop out of this presentation just so I can go ahead and show you live on the new Google Sites. But just know that, and I'll just kind of go through really quickly, this presentation does have various directions or various ways that you can go ahead and do things. So when I go ahead and post this presentation to our training.nowaka.org website, feel free to go ahead and use it, make a copy of it, whatever you need to do, because it does have some directions within the presentation, as well as the resources that I mentioned above. All right, so I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to go back to my Google Drive account. And so here I'm in my Google Drive account, and I am logged in as my test user, which is Wilma Flintstone over here. And she's just in her Google Drive, and we see just our regular Google folders. Now, there's two different ways to go ahead and get started with Google Sites. And the first way is if you're a brand new user and you've never used this before, you can go to your blue new button, go down to More, and then you do have an option that says Google Sites. And if you had used the old Google Sites, you'll notice this icon is a little bit different because it does bounce you directly to the new Google Sites. In any case, if you don't like going that way, or maybe you're just in a Google page and you're not inside Drive, you can go over here to your Apps Launcher. We also call this the waffle menu or the Rubik's Cube. You can go ahead and click on that, and you can go ahead and click on Classic Sites. Now, even though it says Classic Sites, it still does default to the Classic Sites, and this is where everybody kind of gets confused as far as, okay, what do I need to do, and this is not coming up. Way over here in the corner, it says New Google Sites. So you do want to make sure that you go ahead and click on New Google Sites here in the corner because it does default to the old or the classic Google Sites. So I'm going to go ahead and click on New Google Sites here. And I've already created a few Google Sites in Wilma's account. And I'll just kind of remind you too, with your school, with your educational Google domain, with your educational Google account, you have unlimited storage space. So if you do Quiz Bowl, if you teach third grade, if you're the basketball coach, whatever, you could create multiple sites and use them for multiple audiences. And I also like to remind people too at this point is that students can also create Google Sites. I've worked with students that, I worked with a high school science class that they didn't want to do lab reports anymore on paper, so she had each student do their own Google Site, and then they just shared it with the teacher. Because each one of these Google Sites does follow the same sharing permissions as it would just any old Google Doc or Google Sheet, where you can share it just with one person, or you can share it with the world, or you can share it just within your domain. So kind of keep those things in mind too as we go along, that you could create a Google site for many different reasons. All right, so I'm looking at my new Google Sites here. I also see over here in the corner it says Back to Classic Sites. So if I ever wanted to go back, I can go ahead and do that, but I am going to stay here where it says New Google Sites. Now, if you're in your own account, and of course this is the first time that you're opening this, you're probably not seeing any sites that are already created. So you're going to want to go over here in the corner where this red plus sign is, and you can go ahead and click on that, and that will start a new Google site for you. So by default, it's just going to pop open with the new Google site. And here's your page title, and another really neat thing about this new Google site is these are all just text boxes. So I'm going to go ahead, I'll just type in Mrs. Hughes right here. And I am a little limited as far as like fonts and sizes and so forth. So for this title right here, if I drop this down, I can say title, I can say heading, subheading, or even normal text. Of course, I can center it. We're going to talk about links in a little bit, and then here's my trash can. I can move this. Again, this is just kind of a text box, so I'm just moving it wherever I want to. And then down here, I can actually change that black background because everybody's is defaulting to black. So if I'd like to change the image in the background, I can go ahead and drop this down and I can upload my own image, or I can select an image. So I always tell teachers if they have an image of their school or they have an image of, something that they're doing, they can go ahead and upload that, and that will be the background of this banner. Or here's my selected image, and it does bring up a gallery. I also can search my albums or even Google Drive. But let's just say we'll put a real quick one out there. Here's my my quick one there, and I'm going to say select. And look at this, if you guys saw that really quick, it said adjusting for readability. So what that does, you see these little twinkling stars there, what that does is it actually kind of fades the background out a little bit and brings the text a little bit forward. So some people like that and some people don't like that. Depending on the picture, it may format it, it may look a little bit good or bad or whatever, but if you don't like it, of course, you can just click on the stars and remove it, and then it will revert back to where it was before. But by default, it is set to go ahead and do that, just so the text is a little bit easier to read. So other things that I can go ahead and do here, we already talked about changing your image. Here's your header type. So header type, you do get the option to do banner, which is the default. So this is, kind of a good size banner. I can do large banner if I want to. That's really big. Or I can do title only. So, and that's where your banner, your background really disappears. So you have these three options. Most people usually leave it as the default, which is banner, but you certainly can, change it. And I can have my home page as banner and all the other pages be title only. So you have lots of different ways that you can go ahead and do that. I do want to mention before we go ahead and go on to the next part, untitled site and enter site name. You do, of course, want to title this because by default, this is saving inside your Google Drive account. And you want to make sure, especially if you have multiple sites, that you go ahead and give it a name. So I'll just say Mrs. Hughes up here. And then I can even replicate that name here, or I can name it to be something different. That's fine. But I always want to make sure I remind people to go ahead and name it, because otherwise it's a little bit harder to find. So, okay, so we talked about our banner, we talked about, our header type. So down here is our main content area. And I'm going to just look over to the side right here, this insert pages and themes right over here. This is what we call our edit panel. So insert, I can insert things, pages, I can go ahead and insert pages, and then themes, I can choose a theme. So these three things, I don't have to click outside of Google Sites at all. Everything is kind of like right here. So if I wanted to create a text box, maybe I wanted to introduce myself to my class, I can go ahead and just click on my text box, and here's my text box. So I can just say, hello, my name is Mrs. Hughes. And I can go ahead and type whatever I want to. Of course, just like any other Google application, this is automatically saving in your Google Drive account for you as you go. However, it is not publishing out for you as you go. So the difference is that you can go ahead and do everything. It's saved in your Google account. When you're ready for the world to see it, or when you're ready for really anyone else to see it, there is an extra step that you have to go ahead and do. So just to let you know, you're the only one right now that can go ahead and see this. But what's really nice about these text boxes is I can go ahead and shrink it up. I can grab these little circles right up at the top and I can move it. I can move it anywhere I want to on my page. And this is a really, really neat feature of the new Google Sites. Because in the classic Google Sites, you really couldn't do that. So this is very much like a drag and drop type of thing where you can go ahead and move it anywhere you want to on your page. The other thing that you're going to notice, you may have seen this kind of pop up as I'm moving my text box, is over here I get this little color palette, and then of course I get the trash can, which would allow me to delete it. This color palette right here, I really like. This is really neat. This is called the section background. So I put a text box in and, kind of made it a little section. Of course, I could add more, but here's my section background. So over here, I can emphasize this text box or emphasize this section. So I could even put an image behind it, or I could do emphasis 1, or I can do emphasis 2. So I'm going to go ahead and click on emphasis 2, and this is what it does. It kind of brings out that area a little bit more, giving it some color, and then it kind of makes it stand out. So of course I can continue to put more text boxes and pictures and all sorts of things down here, but this area I just gave it some color to make it stand out a little bit more. Now, if you're looking at that and you're like, oh, Christy, that's so cool, but I wish it was yellow, or I wish it was green, or something like that. All of these colors from the section background are actually pulling from the themes. And so if I click over here to themes, you'll see that blue is checked. So I can click on pink and it changes to pink or green or purple or black or whatever. And these over here are also more themes that I can go ahead and choose from. Now again, I don't get a ton of different options, but I do get enough to where I can go ahead and choose the theme that I want, and then that does apply to the whole Google site. So once again, I can change it continuously, and it's automatically saving, and then it will change on every page that I have that section background on. So that's a really neat feature. All right, I'm going to click back on my insert here. And we talked about text box. Let's go ahead and talk about images. So if I wanted to put an image in, I can go ahead and click on image, and I can search by URL, or I can do anything from Drive. My favorite thing, though, of course, is just to do that keyword search right on the web. So I can type in, let's type in colored pencil. And I can find some colored pencils for my site. We'll click on this one, and I'll say select. So then it goes ahead and it puts it right in there. I can resize this if I want to. I can move it. I also have options to crop it, or I can go ahead and uncrop it. Again, we're going to talk about links in a little bit, but you can also have this picture go out to something different, maybe like a website, or maybe more information about colored pencils or anything like that. Trash, of course, we'll trash it. These 3 dots here in the corner, more editing options, you can replace the image with something, or you can even add alt text, which is part of that ADA compliant. So you can go ahead and do that to where if somebody is, visually impaired, they can go ahead and mouse over it and then see some text pop up. So those are all some neat features with the text box and with the images. Now, of course, we're going to continue to go on down the list for this edit panel, but what I want to mention really quickly is if you're not one to look at the edit panel and go over here and so forth, you can just go to a blank area on your page and double click, and a little tiny edit panel pops up. So here I can go ahead and add a text box, I can add images, I can add URLs, I can upload. We're going to talk about From Drive in a little bit, but you do have kind of a shortened version of the edit panel just by double clicking on your screen, and then that will go ahead and pop up. So just so you're aware of all those different options. All right, so I can continue to add things here, but what I do want to talk about right now before we get into Drive and Map and Calendar and all that stuff is over here on our edit panels. We talked a little bit about insert, we talked a little bit about themes. I'm going to go ahead and go over to pages. So once I click on pages, this part allows me to create more than one page, because by default, when I just start up this Google site, it does just give me one page, which is my home page, and so it's listed as home. So if I wanted to create more than one page, I can go ahead and click on this icon right here that says Add Page, and I can just simply add my second page. So let's say this is for math, and I'm going to say Done, and so here's my math page. And you can see it automatically adds it to my navigation bar right up at the top. So now I'm going to go ahead and add a science page. So we'll say Science, and I'm going to say Done. So now I have a science page, and I can continue to go down the line. Now, let's just say I'm going to do geometry. Well, we'll do algebra. Now, in this case, algebra is part of math. So I don't want algebra to be by itself. I actually want algebra to be underneath math. So at this point, if you notice, I have some little dots over here and I have some little dots over here. These are my moving dots. So I can go ahead and hold down on my mouse and I can drag it up and I can just drop it on top of math, and now algebra is underneath math. So if I go over here to my navigation bar, you can see how now when I go under math, there's algebra. So I can click on math and I can click on algebra, and it bounces back and forth between the two pages. So that's how easy it is to go ahead and create pages and then move them. And everybody likes that feature because in the classic Google sites, it was a little bit more difficult to go ahead and move pages back and forth. I mean, you certainly can do it, but this is way easier that you can just drag and drop them and, change the order. So also, if I wanted to make math underneath science, I can go ahead and just drag it, and now it just kind of flipped the order of the two pages. So that's really nice too. So that's how I can go ahead and do it. Again, I'll remind you, you have unlimited storage space, so you can go ahead and add as many pages as you want to, or create as many sites as you want to. What I'll also mention is we talked about these little move dots over here on this side. You also get some dots over here. So what these dots are, I'm going to go ahead and click on these. I can, if I change my mind and I'd rather my science page be my home page, I can go ahead and set that as my home page. I can rename the page. So let's say that I spelled algebra wrong. I can go ahead and rename that page. I can create a subpage. I can remove this page from the site. That's a common question. People create pages and then they're like, oh gosh, how do I delete this? I don't want it anymore. So you can go ahead and remove it. If I hide it from the navigation, what that does is it just kind of puts a slash through it over here, and it removes it from the navigation up on the top. However, I still can see it, and I can still edit it. Then when I'm ready for my audience to see it, or ready for my students, or whoever it is that I want this page, visible to, I can go ahead, click on these three dots once again, and I can say show in navigation, and then that page will pop right back up onto my navigation bar. So that's really nice. Now, I will also remind you that when we're going to talk about publishing in a little bit, when we start to talk about publishing, you can use this right here. If I say hide from navigation, when we publish it, of course, this page will not be published because it's hidden. So that's kind of a good way to keep it, like if it's in construction mode and you want to continue to add stuff and you don't want everybody else to see it, but you want everybody else to see your other pages, you can go ahead and do that. I will also say, and I'll remind you about this when we get to the publishing part, but I will also tell you that for each change that you make, so let's say I'm editing it today, I click on publish, it's published. If I go in tomorrow and start editing more, I do have to click on publish again in order for those new changes to be saved. So sometimes what people decide to do is they'll create a page and they just won't click publish until that page is completely done and they're ready for everybody else to see it, and then they'll just click on publish because that avoids them from having to show it in navigation and hide it in navigation and so forth. But you do have the ability to do either one, but just know that any new changes that you make, you do need to click on publish again, otherwise they'll be saved under your account. It's just that the public or your audience won't be able to see them. So those are pages. And so really neat about pages, same thing for pages, and this is another common question. I've taught Google Sites many times already, and this is another question that always comes up, is that this science page right here, if you notice, my background is not on that page. That background that I clicked on for my home page right here, it's not there. So if I wanted to go ahead and put that on my science page, over here, my header type is the button that I need to click on. Because if I click on header type, it did default to that title only, which means that there's no background coming through. So at this point, I do either need to click on banner or large banner, and then that background will go ahead and come through. I can change it. So like maybe I do want a different background or different header for each individual page. I can go ahead and do that. Maybe for science, I want something, science related, and math, I want something math related. So that's pretty neat that I can go ahead and do that. Here's my change image again. But by default, if it does default to that title only, you do need to click on that and then choose either banner or large banner to get that banner back. So really neat. All right, so last couple things on pages, and then we'll go ahead and move on to the Google Drive part. For pages, it does default to the page navigation with all of your pages being up on the top. So right up here, all of my pages are here. Now, if you're looking at that and you're like, okay, that's cool, Christy, but is there another option? Like, can I put my pages on the side, for instance? you can certainly do that. If I just move my mouse over here across the top navigation bar, I get this little gear off to the side. And I always tell everybody, anytime you see a gear inside a Google application, that generally means that there's settings behind that gear of some sort. So if we go ahead and click on that gear, we'll see that we have the option to do top navigation or side navigation. So my side navigation, it does change because you see now the pages are not listed there. Now I have to click on this little hamburger menu, this is what we call it, our 3 lines, and our pages just kind of fly out from the side. So you get the option to do either way, pages at the top or pages on the side. You can't really do both, but you can go ahead and do that. At this point, too, I'll just kind of mention, of course, our undo and our redo buttons are up on the top. So I always tell, especially when I teach like students, I'll say, this is your best friend button, your undo button, because you don't have to recreate things, just hit undo, and then it brings back what you had before. But also next to your undo and redo button, you get this little eyeball button, and this is your preview button. So if I click on preview, my little eyeball, this will allow me to preview my site as a viewer. So this is another neat feature about the new Google Sites is now I chose that side navigation, so I can go ahead and see what that looks like, and I can toggle back and forth and, you know, see how those pages look like, and maybe I like it, maybe I don't. But what I want to point out to you is down here at the bottom, we get some options. So of course there's your X to close it. But what this does is this allows me to preview my website on a phone. This allows me to preview my website on a tablet. This allows me to preview my website on a large screen computer. And that's really slick because most of our population now previews their websites, any website really, on their phone. They're walking around and they're looking at it on their phone. So if you're looking through this and you're saying, oh, it's not centered, or I don't like how it's laying, or whatever, that's how you can go ahead and preview it. And then you can, of course, go back and change it so that it fits right or whatnot. So you do have these options, and I'm going to go ahead and close this and tell you once again, all those options to preview are under that little eyeball that says view, and that will just allow you to view it as a viewer would, and just to kind of, look to see if you really like it. Another thing that's up here right next to the little eyeball is your ad editors. So if I clicked on ad editors, this would allow me to invite people to help me build my site. And I always like to remind people, this is not publishing, this is not sharing it with the audience, this is not, this is not view only rights. I can go ahead and invite people to have them help me build my site. So for instance, I am working with some schools that are choosing to have one kindergarten shared website. And so each teacher has their own page on that shared kindergarten website, whereas all the kindergarten, has one home page, and then each teacher has its own page. So if that was the case, I would invite each kindergarten teacher here and give them access, and then they can go ahead and create their own page and put whatever they want out there. And the kindergarten parents of the students would only have to go to one website and everything would be there. So some people are choosing to do that. Other people are just adding, co-teachers or intervention specialists or anybody else that they want to go ahead and invite, and this would give them access to edit. This is not a view only, this would give them access to edit. So that's called ad editors. And again, that was under the little person up here with the plus sign, ad editors. So you can go ahead and do that. All right, let's go ahead and go back to this insert part of the edit panel. So I'm going to go ahead and click back on insert. So we talked about our text box, we talked about images, we can upload, we can embed our URLs. I'm just going to scroll down a little bit. Here's our divider. If you wanted to put a divider in there, you certainly can. I can just add it right there. Basically, it just puts a little line, maybe to divide two different things inside your Google site. You can go ahead and do that. If not, you can go ahead and delete it. If you notice each one of these, as I hover over them, I get that trash can off to the side, so I can go ahead and delete it, and then it will be very easily deleted. Let's go ahead and go down and talk about Google Drive. So one of the big things, of course, about using Google Sites or any Google application for that matter is the ease of use between Google Drive, Google Classroom, Google Sites, Google Docs, everything comes together, and it's really easy to move things back and forth. And Google Sites is the same way. So if I want to include a file from my Google Drive account, I can go ahead and click on From Drive, or I can rather just go down here where it says Google Docs. Like maybe there's a specific Google Doc or a Google Slideshow that I want to put in, so I can go ahead and click on any one of these two. But I'm just going to go ahead and click on From Drive so I can show you from the very beginning how you go ahead and do it. And what it does, of course, I'm already signed in, so it's pulling up everything in my Google Drive. It's even pulling up everything that's been shared with me. It's pulling up my recent files. It's pulling up lots of stuff. So this is really neat that I can just go ahead and search my drive, and I even have a search key right up here where I can type in something special that I might be looking for. So this is really neat that I don't have to get out of Google Sites. I can simply just go ahead and search while still staying in my Google Sites. So I'm going to go ahead, let me go ahead and add, we'll just say shared with me. Let me find this journal entry, real simple. This is just a document, so I'll show you a Google Doc. And way down here, this is one common question I get too. People think they can drag and drop, and you cannot drag and drop right now from Google Drive, so you do need to go ahead and click on that insert button down at the bottom, and then your Google file does come in. And so what you're going to notice right away is it kind of like embeds itself in your Google site on your page. So this is the actual Google Doc, and it's not very long. I use this for a journal entry, so it just has a little bit of text. But I can resize it if I want to. Some teachers were doing like their schedule of specials. They were doing, you know, if you're the wrestling coach, maybe they were putting a calendar out there. We'll talk about calendars in a little bit. But maybe they have a Google Sheet of all kinds of stuff, so you can put that out there too. One of the neat things about putting Google files on your Google site is, for instance, this document right here. It doesn't have a whole lot of stuff. If I wanted to update this document, I can go back to Google Drive, do my update, and then because it automatically saves and it automatically saves everywhere that file is, this file will then automatically be updated. So if I was using like a PDF file or something, which by the way you can also include, but if I was using, you know, a different type of file, it wouldn't be as easy. I would have to take it down and then put the new one back up. Whereas if it's a Google file, I can go ahead and put it up one time, change it on the back end in Google Drive, and then it automatically reflects all of those new changes that I did. So that's what's really neat about that. So that's a Google Doc. I am going to go ahead and find another example just so I can show you. I do have this presentation right here. So this is a Google Slideshow. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Insert here. And I can, you know, certainly move this wherever I want to. I could even put it right next to Docs if I wanted to. But one of the really neat things about slides, again, if I go ahead and click on this, I can resize it. And I love seeing those gears because that means I can do something with it. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that gear. I can rename it if I want to, and this is my favorite part. I can auto start it, which means whenever people go visit that page, it automatically will start, and I can loop it. So this is really cool because if I have lots of people are doing like slideshows of pictures from maybe a field trip or a STEM activity or something that you wanted to post out on your website, you can go ahead and put all those pictures in a Google Slideshow. I usually say like 1 to 2 pictures per page or per slide, and then you can go ahead and just loop it. So then whoever goes to that web page will just continuously see pictures of that event. So that's really neat. Of course, you can delay the time too if you wanted to go ahead and delay it. And all those things are, you know, you can use those for Google Slides. So I love using Google Slides. This one, of course, was just a webinar that we did, but you can certainly put any kind of Google Slideshow in there, and then you have all those different options that you can go ahead and add to kind of customize it to make it look how you want it to look. So really neat. Again, you can get that from Drive, or you can go ahead and just go down to Google Docs and go ahead and change it there as well. All right. So I'm going to just scroll down here a little bit. Actually, let me go to a different page so I can go ahead and get, well, we'll go to my math page, make it a little bit different here. I'll go back to my edit panel. Now, at this point, what I do want to talk about is the calendar, because this is a big question. Lots of people love putting calendars on their Google site. And it's great because anything in your calendar, it pulls from Google Calendar. So anything in Google Calendar, you can go ahead and put out here, and then it will, you know, portray that calendar. So once again, same thing for Google Docs. if you make a change on your calendar, it will automatically show up on your Google site. You don't have to, you're not going to enter any information in on your Google site. Rather, you're going to go ahead and do it in your Google Calendar, and then it will show up on your site. So if I click on Calendar here, again, it's totally integrated. These are all of my Google Calendars in Wilma's account. So I'm scrolling through all these calendars that Wilma has access to. Here's her default calendar. If you use Google Classroom, you know that Google Classroom also creates Google Calendars for you automatically. So these are all Wilma's classes in Google Classroom. So if I wanted to put these out there for homework, or for different activities or whatever, I can go ahead and do that too. So I'll just click on Google Overview Class 101 and I'll say Insert, and so there's my little calendar. Now some districts prefer, and this is all personal preference, if you like a small calendar, like some districts put a really tiny calendar on their home page, just so it's really easy to see and you can kind of just scroll up and down with the events, you can go ahead and do that. Or some teachers, if they have a lot of stuff on their calendar and they want it to be, really, really big, maybe create a page and just name it Calendar, and then go ahead and put your Google Calendar on there really, really big. Either way will work. I mean, it's still pulling from the same Google Calendar. But some of the options that you get for your Google Calendar, here's my little gear once again, so I'm going to go ahead and click on that. For my settings, I can go ahead and show the title, I can show the date, show the time zone, view the selection. Here's the big one though. So it defaults to agenda mode, which basically means that everything's kind of listed there on the side. If I'd rather it be a month view, I can click on done and I can show you what that looks like. Here's what it looks like for a month. So some of those teachers that want like a page to just hold their calendar, they choose maybe a month's view because it's easier to see like the big picture, but you certainly can go ahead and change all of that under your settings and change it week, month, or agenda. So all of those different things, and it will pull from your calendar. So once again, if you're not familiar with Google Calendar, I'm going to hop back over to my Drive just for a second. Under your Apps Launcher or your Rubik's Cube over here, I can access Calendar just by going right here, and then I can go ahead and enter any of those events on my calendar under Wilma Flintstone. If you want to start a new calendar, you have this drop-down arrow next to My Calendars where I can go ahead and just say Create a New Calendar. One thing I want to mention though, and I'm going to close out of this here for a second, one thing that I want to mention though with your calendar, with your Google files, with your Google slideshows, your documents, all of those things, when you're starting to put more and more things out on your Google site, I want to mention to you that you need to make sure that your calendar and your documents and your slideshow, all of those are viewable to like the public or viewable with the link to the public. So by using those shared permissions, so if I go over here to my webinar, when I click on share over here, I do want to make sure that anyone with the link can view, or I can make it completely public on the web, because what will happen is if you don't share it, if I don't say public on the web or anyone with the link or can view or any of these things, what will happen is that you're going to put it out on your Google site and you're going to get a million emails that say so-and-so wants access and so-and-so wants access because they're not allowed to view it. So you do want to make sure if you are sharing it with the world, you want to make sure any calendar, any document, presentation is public on the web based on the shared permissions of that file. Or on the flip side, maybe it's a slideshow where you don't want to make it public. You can go ahead and just limit that to maybe just a couple people or just to your domain or anything like that. But everything does pull from those shared permissions regardless of what you put on your Google site. So I just wanted to mention that. All right, so at this point, I'm going to go ahead and go down a little bit. I'll go back to my edit panel, and we're going to talk about maps. So we talked about from Drive, we talked about Google Docs, we skipped over YouTube. We'll revisit that here in a second. We did talk about calendar. Here's our maps, and this is another neat thing. NOACA, we actually use this a lot because anytime we host an event, we put a map on there, and then we can put the address. So I'll just put Archbold right here. Archbold, Ohio, and then what pops up is here's a little Archbold place mark, so I can go ahead and click a drop a place mark, and there it is, And then when I say select, that map will come in right on my web page. And so what's neat, and I'm just going to scroll up here just a little bit. You see already it says directions. So if I scroll up and preview it as a viewer, again, this is what my viewers will see. They can go ahead and go to that map, and they can go ahead and see it. And I'll scroll down because my, let me go back. Maybe I'm on the wrong page. Let me go back here. My screen was not scrolling for me. But in any case, what's really neat about these maps is that I can go ahead and my audience can get directions from wherever they may be. So if they are looking at if they're coming from a different direction, they can just click on directions and it will give them directions to wherever address I put on my map. So that's what's really neat. And of course, you can add a text box off to the side that says, you know, our location for Saturday's game or something like that. So you can put all of those things in there. So really neat about adding the map. All right, so, and I'm just going to briefly talk about YouTube here for a second because I do want to talk about links, and I'm keeping an eye on time as well. For YouTube, you can certainly click on YouTube and enter any YouTube address. You can have an uploaded video if you want to, but just know that if your school blocks YouTube videos or for the students and or for the teachers, it's going to be blocked, you know, if they're clicking on it during class time. So it's not like you're going around the filter or anything like that. So just keep those things in mind if you are putting things out on your website and you want the students to access them during class time. Remember that when you go ahead and put those out there, whatever your district policy may be for YouTube.
All right, so we're good on the science page. Now the next thing that I wanted to talk about is links. Because if you looked at this home page, and I'm going to click back on pages over here, if we were on this home page and you saw that I put in this document and then I also put in this slideshow, and you're looking at that thinking like, wow, Christy, that's really great, but I really want a lot of stuff on my page and I don't want my things to be really big. So if that's the case, I'm going to hop over to my science page and I'm going to show you how to insert items based on a link. So for instance, I'm going to go ahead and click on my insert. Actually, this time I'm just going to do a double click and I'll just say click here. Well, I'll just say agenda. Okay, so here's my agenda. So I want to put a Google Doc in there that is an agenda, but I don't want it to come in like embedded, like really big. So I'm going to go ahead and just highlight this word agenda, and right up here I get my insert link option. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Insert Link. Now at this point, I can put in my link to my agenda. So if that was a Google Doc, I can go ahead and grab that address. Notice how I'm going to scroll down here a little bit. I also got the option to link to another page in my Google site, and it keeps bouncing me out there. But you probably saw how I can go ahead and link to another page in my Google site. So I can go ahead and do that too. So either way, I also can link. Lots of teachers prefer just to maybe have like a math page and have different resources for math, you know, different or phonics, starfall.com or MobyMax or, you know, extra math or things like that, where they're clicking on those websites and everything's on one page that they can go ahead and do. Now, once again, if your students are going to click on these links and they have to log in, this is not providing, you know, any roundabout way for them to log in. They're still going to have to go ahead and log in. You're just basically providing the page and having all the resources like on one page. So if I wanted to put my agenda on there, I can go ahead, well, let's just put this presentation out there. So I can go ahead and click on share, and I want to go ahead and grab this link. So it says anyone with the link can view. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this link here, and I'm just going to copy it, and I'll go back to my website, and instead of agenda, I'll just put presentation, because this is exactly what I do on our website for NOACA, and I'm just going to paste it in there, and I can click on apply. Now here's how it looks different. It just is a link rather than a big window of a presentation. So again, if I view it as a user, I can just click on that link, and then it would go directly to that Google Sites webinar presentation. So either way is fine. I always like to point out, you know, there's not one right or wrong way to do it. It just depends on how many things you might want on one page, and if you want a lot of things, great. If you don't, that's fine too, but you can go ahead and link it just by typing in text, clicking on the link, and that will work. One thing I also want to mention, I'll click on my home page here. I did have a picture on my home page. Here's my little colored pencils. I can also link off of a picture. So if I click on that link, then I can go ahead and put that same link there, and then it would go to that same presentation. So it doesn't just have to be text. It can be links, or it can be pictures too. All right, couple last things before we run out of time. Here's our Publish button. You probably saw this when we were up here looking at all these buttons. But here's our Publish button. So once again, by default, as you go along from your Google site, everything is saving in your Google account. When you're ready for the audience to see it, whether it be one person, two people, the world, you're going to go ahead and click on Publish. You do need to give it some sort of site location. So I usually tell people first initial, last name is a really good thing, really, consistent, because if they teach something different next year, then they don't have to go ahead and rename it. Although you can go ahead and rename this. But here are the big things. Anyone at nowaka.info, of course this would say your domain, or anyone on the web. And this is where you're going to tell it, I want, only people with my domain to be able to see this. Of course, they're going to have to log in order to see this site, or anyone on the web, it will be completely public. Now, once I publish this, it's publishing it, and then what will happen is this Publish button then changes. So I get this drop-down arrow off to the side. So I can go ahead and click on this drop-down arrow, and now I have different options. Of course, I can unpublish it. So if something happened and I wanted to go ahead and quickly unpublish it, that's all I have to do. Or I can go back to Publish Settings. I can change the name of it. I can check this box, allow my site to appear in search results. I can change it up here. All those things are fine. The other thing is View Published Site. So this is kind of another way just to kind of view it on the web, just to see what it looks like. It does give you that full address right there. So I always tell teachers when they're completely done with their website and they're ready to send it on to their webmaster or whoever does the website in order to link it off the home page, this is the website, this is the page, the link that they would need to give them, because this is actually the home page of their site. Whereas, in here, it's just you're in edit mode, so it's this, junk up here, and it's not the real site. So I always tell people just to go to the View Publish site, and that's the public one. So that's really neat. All right, so again, if you make any changes, so, I don't know if you're following along and trying things on your own while you're watching me, but if you're making changes and you click Publish right now, and then you go ahead and make more changes, you do have to click Publish again. You do not have to click the drop-down arrow. You simply just click this Publish button one time, and it publishes it, and it just kind of updates it on the web. And so now all your new pages or your new changes will be saved. All right, last thing that we'll talk about is this G Suite training, and I do want to show you this. This is one of my favorite extensions, and this pulls up off to the side, and I can search. So like, let's say I wanted searching on publishing. So I can, publishing. So here it's going to show me all different videos on how to publish my site. Some of these videos are just straight videos where it just, shows you a video like YouTube. But some of these videos are very interactive, where it actually says, click on the text box, and it'll have an arrow that points to your text box, and the video will pause until you actually go to the text box. So that's really neat, because I feel like people learn better that way, watching and doing rather than just watching. So that's one of the reasons that I really like this G Suite training. If you install G Suite training, this icon does appear in all of your Google apps. So it will be in Docs and Sheets and Slides and even Classroom. So it's really neat. If you're kind of new to Google Apps and extensions and you're not really sure how to get them, you could do a Google search, just do a Google search and go to the Chrome Web Store. So of course you need to be inside Google Chrome to do this, but go to the Chrome Web Store and then just go ahead and search for the G Suite training, and it will go ahead and come up, G Suite training. And it is an extension, so I already have it, so mine says rate it. But if you don't have it, you could just say add to Chrome, and it will add it to all your Google applications, and it will just live right up there in the top corner, and it's free. But it's really neat, because anytime you have a question and you're inside the application, you could just pull it out, ask the question, and just watch a really quick video on how to do it. So I love extensions, I love apps, and so that's one of my favorites with, especially with any kind of new products that come out Google related. I always use that icon to kind of answer some of the questions that I might have. All right, so let me go back to my presentation. I think we talked about all of these things, and last one was Chrome extension. So I'm going to go ahead and present this last screen here, and this last screen is, of course, thank you for attending. I do have some links up there. Get involved with our Google Educators group. If you are interested in doing that, you can go ahead and visit that link. That is what I talked about a little bit earlier with all the free events that we host and hold in different locations. You can go ahead and present if you want to be a presenter at any of our Google or any of our events, or you can just go ahead and attend and just gain some knowledge and take it back to your district. If you do want a copy of this presentation, here's the link for that. And like I said, these webinars are recorded, so I will go ahead and edit this and have it up on our website within the next few days or so, and this presentation will also be out there. So if you don't want it now, you can go ahead and get it later. And here are the Tuesday Tech Tips. If you are not part of that and you wish to be a part of it, you can go ahead and sign up for our Tuesday Tech Tips. And it's free. Every Tuesday you'll get a real short and sweet email about how to do different things. And you can go ahead and use that or forward it on to your teachers, whatever it may be. And then lastly, for our CEUs, if you've never attended one of our webinars before, how we do the CEUs is we say 24 hours, usually by tomorrow morning. And if you're off school, of course, you can check it on Monday or whenever you get back. You'll receive an email from our Nowaka FileMaker system. And it'll have a link to an evaluation. So if you fill out that evaluation for this webinar, and then the next thing that you'll get is a place where you can go ahead and fill in your name and your district. And then when you click submit, what happens on the back end is it will go ahead and send you your CEU certificate. That CEU certificate will come right into your email inbox, and then you will get the 1 hour CEU credit for this webinar for today. So once again, just kind of look for that initial email that has the evaluation in it, and it will kind of walk you through all those steps, and then you will get your CEU automatically emailed to you. So I will stay in, and it's just about 5 o'clock now, so I will stay in this webinar for just about 5 or 10 minutes. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to send them to the chat or go ahead and unmute yourself and ask me, but hopefully you've learned some things about Google Sites today. Thank you for attending, and most of you are probably off school tomorrow, I'm thinking. So enjoy your weekend and have a happy Easter, and we hope to see you in another webinar soon. Thank you.